Ghosts are actually the electrons left over by the person who just passed. So what happens is that when we die, our physical body dies, but the astral body will leave our physical body. And the astral body is actually composed of electrons. So in 3 days' time, 81% of electrons of the astral body will go to our higher self. Why 3 days? This is a natural law. This is why actually Christ resurrected after 3 days. And this is why in Tibetan culture, the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for at least 3 days because the cycle has not been completed yet according to the Tibetans. So the other 19% of the electrons of the astral body will remain in nature until either the person reincarnates or until the electrons are recycled by nature. So what people see as ghosts are actually the remaining 19% electrons of the person who just passed. Because electrons have static energy or forces, they resemble the appearance of the person who just passed. And also because electrons have memories. So this is why ghosts frequently haunt places they loved or hated.
Aloha and welcome to another show, guys. Today, our special guest is Samuel Chong. But before we begin, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a positive review. And guys, I really need your help with that. We've got thousands of listeners, but only 20 reviews. And that's how platforms decide whether to show this podcast to new people. So please, it really does help more than you know. If you enjoy what I do here, just take a moment, please, and write something positive or kind and share this episode with someone who really needs to hear it. You can also support this show by buying me a coffee or on Patreon, where I post unfiltered versions of my interview. Now, some of my content have been removed from Spotify lately, so if an episode ever disappears, that's where you'll find the full conversation. And just so you know, membership is completely free. I don't charge for access because I want this information open to everyone. I've also recently added my Amazon affiliate link. It's my personal storefront where I share things I actually use and love. When you use that link, I do earn a small commission at no extra cost to you, and it directly helps supports the show. Now, about today's guest, Samuel Chong. Samuel is a lawyer, a motivational speaker. He's a certified Mandarin court interpreter and Chinese translator. He has also researched and spoken extensively on advanced consciousness, ancient mysteries, extraterrestrials, and UFO and UAP phenomena. Now, I know some of what we'll talk about today may sound unusual or even unbelievable, but that's okay because here on this podcast, we give people the space to speak freely and share their experiences without censorship. So please listen with an open mind. If this conversation opened your mind or sparked new questions, I'd love to hear from you. If you've ever had an unusual experience, maybe you've seen something strange in the skies or encountered something you couldn't explain, please share your story in the comments below. I do try to read them all, and you never know, it might inspire a future episode. Now, let's bring Samuel into this conversation. Enjoy the show. Aloha, Samuel, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Your work on the Thiaoouba, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, prophecy, has sparked curiosity all around the world. And I know my listeners are going to be fascinated about what you have to say about it and what you've learned. But before we get in, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you first came across the Thiaoouba Prophecy. And what was it about this book that made you want to dedicate so much of your time to share this message?
Well, I was born in China in 1978. I had a lot of curiosities for the unknown and the paranormal. I wanted to find out um, things, what are the things that people have been wondering about. For example, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the Bermuda Triangle, ghosts, and also some of the other esoteric knowledge, such as the auric fields, the human energy fields, and also how we can improve our health in general, as well as some of the other issues like the real dangers on Earth. So I was very interested in learning about everything I just mentioned. In China, it was very open back then in the 1980s and early 1990s. I was able to get to read a lot of reports translated into Chinese from foreign countries. One of which was there was a engineer or physicist who was taken by the ETs to the spacecraft. Um, and then he was told that even though Einstein laid the three fundamental principles of modern physics, he made a small mistake that resulted in us believing that we cannot go faster than the speed of light. So in my subconscious mind, I was thinking, if the ETs can come and visit us, they must have advanced knowledge and technologies, and we can just learn from them. So that's always in my subconscious mind. So I was looking to read more books written by ET contactees. That's how I got to the book Thiaoouba Prophecy. By that time, I had read so many books already. Some of them claim to have had contacts with the ETs, and some of them claim to have obtained channeled information from extraterrestrials, in which I read very thoroughly and investigated some of the facts stated in the books. But this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, is special because it's very detailed, containing a lot of facts that I was able to investigate and verify and validate. So I'm a lawyer by training and also a certified Chinese translator and court interpreter. I need proof. I need facts that can be proven and are credible and also make common sense. So this book talks about how the author was taken by the ETs to their planet for 9 days and then came back. So this is the reason why I've been so interested in sharing the stories of the author, because it has a lot of very important implications, not just the religious or theological implications, but also the facts contained in the book can be very helpful for us to create a better life.
Yeah, I recently was on your website and I came across a list of questions that was really compelling and it drew me in. Um, they touch so many mysteries that people wonder about, like you mentioned, the Great Pyramid, Bermuda Triangle, reincarnation, parallel universes, things like that. And I'd love to, if it's okay with you, to talk about some of those things. I'd like to know what you found out about the Great Pyramid of Egypt and who built it and for what purpose.
Yes, that always fascinated me since I was young. We were all told by the textbooks that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built as a tomb for the pharaohs. Um, and according to this book, it was actually built as an energy center, a tool that the ancient pharaohs used to communicate with people on different planets, because the pyramid structure can actually capture cosmic terrestrial energies. So this is what the pharaohs used it for. And recently, just a few months ago, Italian scientists used radar, a specific kind of radar, and detected subterranean and underground structures of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, further proving that it's not a tomb for the pharaohs, but as an energy center, a tool for the pharaohs to use in the past. And this was actually built by a great wise person called Thoth about 17,000 years ago, according to the ETs. And he used anti-gravitational technologies so that the huge and heavy stones would become weightless without weight. And then he also used supersonic vibratory systems to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. Um, and you can do research. You can find modern cutting tools that engineering firms used using ultrasonic vibrations to cut certain materials. And I think this is a further validation of the author who didn't really have a lot of education. He was a landscaper in Australia. He did not really know how to type on computer, and he wrote a book back in 1989, and he got a book published in 1993. If you think about the timing, that was before the time when internet was popular in Australia, not to mention Cairns, like a small city in Queensland. So, and he didn't really know how to use technology, not to mention that he was not able to search on the internet even after the book was written. So this further indicates that he must have had a real experience and was told by the ETs how the pyramid was built.
Wow, that's incredible. You also talked about disappearances and appearances in the Bermuda Triangle and the concept of a parallel universe. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you found out about that?
Yes, when I was in China, I always hear stories about the ships and planes that just vanish in the Bermuda Triangle area. It was a very big thing in China back then. And then after I came here, I also read stories documented by David Paulides, who wrote a series of books called the Missing 411 books. So he researched and investigated people who just gone vanish in national parks in the US and Canada under strange circumstances. For example, if a group of people went up the hill or the mountains hiking, and then when one person turns ahead, the other person just vanished, and they had rescue teams and search for that missing person. They had also rescue dogs to smell the scent of the missing person. And the dogs normally stop at the place the person just disappeared. And then they searched and researched the area for a few days and they gave up. And then a few days later, they found out that there's a corpse that appeared at the location that they did a lot of research and searched activities in the past. And then it's just very strange, and no one knew like what happened. But this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, explains that there are orbs or portals that float around in space like ribbons, and people, planes, or ships near the portals get sucked into the portals, and unless they know how to get out, they're forever stuck there. So this is what happens. It's actually a natural phenomenon. Very interesting.
Oh no, it's natural. It's a natural phenomenon.
Yes, according to the
Wow.
book.
Oh
And
my
actually,
God.
yes, yes. And according to the ETs, they know this and they take advantage of the portals or warps to come in and get out of Earth. So this is why when you talk to UFO, UAP researchers, the MUFON people, they frequently observe the UFOs, the UAPs appear and disappear at a certain location in the sky. So this is why they use the portals to come in and then get out of Earth.
Oh my gosh. So what did the book explain what happens to these people that gets put into a parallel or another universe, or where do they go?
Yes, the book talks about that. Actually, the ETs in the book took advantage of the portals and parallel universe, and then they actually parked or stationed their spacecraft in the parallel universe. And Michel Desmarquet, the author, actually saw what was inside of a parallel universe. Like he saw people behaving like savages from the ancient past, like cavemen. And then he saw people wearing medieval clothes. According to the ETs, when you are in a parallel universe, time stops and you don't feel hunger or thirst or pain. It's a very strange phenomenon, and you probably can get more information from the book. And there are a lot of stories like that. Actually, David Paulides can verify and corroborate what's inside of a parallel universe because when in a few of his cases, when the corpses are found, it seems that some of the corpse had bones that come out. So it seems that the people didn't feel pain and they walked to their bones. So this is what David Paulides found out.
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh. Wow. So, is this parallel universe stuck in a medieval times, or are there many different times?
Well, it's a natural phenomenon, so it's always in existence throughout history. So they probably sucked some of the people from the medieval times. They probably sucked some of the people from ancient times and also modern times. So once you're in the parallel universe, you're able to see people who misfortunately or got stuck into there and then stuck there. So it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Oh my God. So they could still possibly be alive, stuck in another parallel universe?
Yes, they're still alive because they don't feel hunger, they don't feel pain, time stops, so they're forever stuck there. They
Oh
don't
my
age
God.
and they
Oh,
don't age.
oh, how scary is that?
Yes,
Oh
it
my
is.
gosh. Okay, that's interesting. What about the Easter Island statues? You talked about that, and what is their purpose that they were built for?
So the statues on Easter Island were actually built in ancient times, about 14,500 years ago. There was a continent that existed in the Pacific Ocean about from 1.32 million years ago until 14,500 years ago in the Pacific Ocean. Actually, Easter Island and Hawaii Islands are actually part of the ancient civilization or the continent that used to exist in the Pacific Ocean. So there was a very successful kind of ancient civilization called Lemuria that some of you might know, and they had very advanced technologies, very similar to the technologies that they used to build the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And they actually were in constant communication and contact with the ETs from Thiaoouba, a planet in which the author Michel visited. And then in order to kind of commemorate the ETs from Thiaoouba, so they used stylized sculptures or statues and wanted to really thank them for and appreciate them for their help. Um, so this is how and why the statues on Easter Island were built. It's very interesting if you read the book.
Wow. Um, yeah, you had mentioned about this connection. Is that Mu,
Yes, Mu, also known as Lemuria.
the Moria? Okay, and that connected. I've heard stories that connected Hawaii all the way to the Easter Island. Is that what you are also familiar with? That
Yes, and also some of the Pacific islands were part of the continent that sunk into the ocean.
okay? So what's left over is what's sticking out at the top, which is like the Hawaiian Islands. Is basically what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
And
And
this
there's a one important detail in the book. The people who used to live on the continent of Lemuria loved flowers.
really okay.
Yes, just like Hawaiian people.
Yes, we do love our flowers here. Um, so this connection, I guess, because of the island sinking and what was left, I do notice a lot of same. I guess a lot of things are very similar. The a lot of the speech, a lot of the statues, things like that. Some of the culture, they're all very similar to each other. Is that the reason why? Because they used to all be one?
Yes, the people who used to live on the continent of Lemuria, they were actually very advanced people, culturally speaking, and also very civilized. So in that culture, they did not have money, and people were highly spiritual. So they just grabbed everything they needed from the marketplace because no one took advantage of each other. So they had a very stable political structure in which seven people ruled the entire continent, and they worked for no money. They were altruistic people. They served the people by devoting their time and talent, and it was extremely successful. And this is why I think when people read about the history of Lemuria, they can understand why so many like cultures are very similar in the Pacific Ocean or islands.
Yeah. So are the people currently today, are they Lemurian people? Or are the Lemurian people gone now?
The Polynesian people in the Pacific Ocean, they are actually the descendants of the Lemurians. But unfortunately, when the continent sunk into the ocean, a great civilization was lost, and the knowledge that the civilization had was also lost because they actually kept a lot of their technologies to themselves. They did not really pass or give it to people in Asia or Europe or Africa in order to keep their advantage over the other people who were living in other parts of the world. So this is why when the continent sunk into the ocean, a lot of the technologies and knowledge was lost. So that's the second great reset.
Wow. Second grade. How many resets were there?
There have been two great resets. The first great reset occurred in about 1.32 million years ago. That's due to an asteroid that hit Earth and split into three parts. One of the smallest parts hit was now today's Galapagos Islands of Ecuador. So if you visit the Galapagos Islands, you're going to see that the archaeologists or geologists have a hypothesis or theory that it was due to an asteroid hitting that place, causing the formation of the islands.
Oh, wow. And then the second one was this where the Lemuria sank.
Yes,
Was it
unfortunately.
just was it just Lemuria that sank, or was it other continents as well that sank?
It was Lemuria first, uh, 14,500 years ago. And then after Lemuria sunk into the ocean due to a natural disaster, like an earthquake, Atlantis, another continent that existed in the past between the North American continent and the European continent in the Atlantic Ocean also sunk into the ocean as well. And people in Atlantis also had great knowledge because they were actually colonized by people from Lemuria, according to the ETs.
Oh wow, that's incredible. Um, you also talked about in your on your website ghosts and are they real and their reincarnation and near death experiences. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, ghosts are real because I know people who can see ghosts and also communicate with ghosts. There's a very famous person called Michael Curry in Pasadena. He actually visited my office and actually communicated with a ghost in my office, which is actually a dental office. It's a very interesting story, actually. And then ghosts are actually uh, the electrons left over by the person who just passed. So what happens is that when we die, our physical body dies, but the astral body will leave our physical body. And the astral body is actually composed of electrons. So in 3 days' time, 81% of electrons of the astral body will go to our higher self. Why 3 days? This is a natural law. This is why actually Christ resurrected after 3 days. And this is why in Tibetan culture, the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for at least 3 days because the cycle has not been completed yet, according to the Tibetans. Um, so the other 19% of the electrons of the astral body will remain in nature until either the person reincarnates or until the electrons are recycled by nature. So what people see as ghosts are actually the remaining 19% electrons of the person who just passed. Because electrons have static energy or forces, they resemble the appearance of the person who just passed. And also because electrons have memories. So this is why ghosts frequently haunt places they loved or hated.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a very scientific answer. I love that. Um, do those energies ever go away, or are they here forever?
They are going to stay here unless um, people who have psychic abilities can send them away. I actually know someone in Orange County in California, Southern California, who can actually send ghosts away. And actually, if you don't like ghosts to be around, you can actually just use candles or lighter to actually get them away or to dispel the ghosts.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Um, you mentioned, I heard you mention on another podcast before about you can read ancient Chinese texts. I guess that they're the same text as current Chinese text. Maybe I'm not
Yes.
sure, but you can read that and you could find out when Jesus was born and when he
Yeah.
died. Could you
Yes.
tell us that? Could you tell us
Yes.
what you found?
Yes. What I found was that in the astronomical records of China, um, they actually paid a lot of attention to what happened in the sky because the emperors of China wanted to see whether they're going to have a long life or not. They want to take the signals of the sky or as warnings or some kind of guidance. So the astronomers in China had a very, very detailed record of what happens in the sky, like eclipses and things like that. And then, according to the astronomical records of China, there was a star that remained in the sky for 70 days. And then, and also checked the Bible, and there's actually in the New Testament, it talks about the Star of Bethlehem that remained in the sky and after Jesus was born. So if I check the records of China and also to really corroborate with the descriptions in the Bible, I can actually pinpoint the exact date of the birth of Jesus, who was indeed born from Virgin Mary. The date is actually March 9th, 5 BC. And this actually matches the historical records. For example, if you read the descriptions of the Bible, Jesus was more likely to be born of springtime, not wintertime, if you really look into that. And also, it matches the account of King Herod, who killed many babies um, uh, as described in the Bible. So that's what I found out. I also was able to pinpoint the exact date of the crucifixion of Christ as well as the resurrection of Christ. And the dates are March 31, AD 31, and April 3rd, AD 31. Because the descriptions of the astronomical records of China match the descriptions in the Bible.
Wow, that's weird. Everything was in March. Is that a significance of something?
I don't know, I think that's probably like in spring. Spring in
Mhm.
Chinese culture signifies the birth of something new. So I think that has some kind of significance of a birth of a more spiritual world.
Wow. Now, I we were always taught that Jesus was not born on Christmas, but possibly in the fall. So
Mm.
this is the first I've heard it's possibly in the spring. That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. That's really incredible. Um, what is said to happen in the future, I guess, according to the Thiaoouba prophecy? Is do they talk about what's going to happen in our future?
Well, the book's title is Thiaoouba Prophecy, but the book really doesn't say explicitly about what's going to happen in the future. because the future depends on our collective actions. The past is fixed. Actually, the author was taken into the past and saw, for example, what happened when the um, continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean, and also his past lives. He saw the past as an observer because everything was shown to him holographically. A lot of people ask, can we change the past? The answer is no, we cannot, because you are just like seeing like a film, holographic film. You can feel and experience everything, but the people who are just like actors in the film just are going to run their show. You cannot intervene or change anything that their actions or anything like that. But the future is not fixed. The future really depends on our actions. There are probabilities of the future, and that some psychics can really see and also foretell. And there are certain events in the future that are destined to happen. But by and large, the directions of the future really depend on our human actions. So we make our future. So this is why the book is written, just to guide us so that we can make the right direction, right decisions in the future. However, having said that, the book really did tell a lot of things that were later proven by modern science, or kind of things that happened after the book was published. For example, it talks about the artificial structures or ET bases on the far side of the moon, the back side of the moon. It talks about life on Mars. People used to live on Mars, but then Mars became like a dead planet, became like a desert. So there's no life on Mars anymore. It talks about a lot of the scientific evidence, such as antibacterial, antiviral effects of yellow light and blue light, in which Harvard Medical School had a research paper on. So things like that. So the book actually was way ahead of its time, in which it talks about the facts and things that were later proven by science.
Yeah, I did read about the lights, and the the person that was talking to, was it Michael? I
Yeah,
forget. And about not touching anything or not touching her or them, and they had to go through some kind of light, like the blue light, till they were
yeah,
cleaned, which
yeah.
is what
This
we
is
did. Which we do now
yes.
with the blue lights. In fact, that's good for your skin too, for killing bacteria, for acne. You use a blue light for that. So yeah, that's incredible. You said there was a life prior on Mars. I think there's a lot of topics on that, where there's things and structures that were found on Mars that, I guess, is that what this civilization was left over from this civilization?
Yes, actually, people used to live on Mars about 1.35 million years ago. And what happened was that when the core of Mars cooled down, it no longer had the electromagnetic force to capture the atmosphere. So without atmosphere, Mars would become like a desert because it cannot really keep the water molecules inside of the atmosphere anymore. So Mars is actually a dead planet. But before, there were people who were highly spiritual who lived on Mars, and there were animals and also plants. And actually, we all came from different planets originally. We did not evolve from apes or gorillas. Um, and actually, a planet has its lifetime. So a planet doesn't really last forever. So we have to migrate from a planet to another planet over time. So this is actually verified and can be proven by astronomers or geologists. So this book is amazing because as a farmer or landscaper in Australia, it actually encompasses different fields or doctrines of science, like geology, archaeology, astronomy, politics, religion, and things like that. Very, very interesting book.
Yeah, I read a part of it. I didn't read the whole thing, but I did read through it, and it is very interesting. Um, the moon, where does that come from?
According to the ETs, the moon of Earth was actually captured by Earth, and then it's actually something that's going to clash into Earth in the distant future. And a lot of
Oh,
people say, "Oh no, the moon is actually moving farther away from Earth uh, by about 4 centimeters per year or so." But if you listen to the recent interview of the Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb with Joe Rogan, he says that not many people talk about this, but he says that the moon will crash onto Earth in the distant future. So
wow.
this actually is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. What about dinosaurs? How did they become extinct?
Well, dinosaurs existed before we came to Earth. It went extinct because asteroid hit Earth and then causing a lot of volcanic activities. That's in ancient times when we were not living on Earth. So really, that doesn't matter to us.
You visited the author, the original author, Michael what is his name? Desmarquet?
Desmarquet, French Desmarquet, Michel Desmarquet, to be yeah, French.
And was that an interesting visit?
Yes, I actually visited him back in 2016 and 2018 twice for a total of 9 days. The
Nice.
first time, yeah, the first time I visited him was I wanted to find out what else he knew but couldn't write in the book. Because in the postscript it says there are far more incredible things that he knew and learned from the ETs, but was instructed not to write in the book because we were far from understanding them. I was very curious about that, so that's my reason to track him down and to visit him in person. Hopefully, that he could tell me that in person. So I didn't know where he was living, and I fortunately found there's a website of a tourist who accidentally met him in Vietnam, and he took pictures of him and his bungalow, but he refused to tell me what like where exactly he was living at that time. So what I did was that I printed out a picture of the bungalow in which Michelle lived, and then I flew to Vietnam using spending my own money, $2,000, a lot of money uh, uh, at that time for me, who didn't really have a lot of income. And then I showed that picture that I printed out um, of his bungalow to the local taxi driver and then asking the driver to take me there. And then at the second try, he took me to the right location. And there I met Michelle.
Oh my gosh, did you just knock on his door?
Yes, I did, in a sense. And then he was having an afternoon nap. I waited until he woke up.
And you knocked on his door and you're like, "Hi, I would like to ask you some questions."
Yes, yes. And he said, "Oh, you came for the book. Oh, okay. Read it one more time. Read it one more time, and then you get the answer." So this is his attitude. He was not really welcoming to me. He was annoyed at my visit because he was a very private person. Just like the tourist told me, he was a very private person.
But eventually, did he open up to you?
Yes, because he found me useful because I speak Chinese, you know. And then it turned out that he signed a contract with a Chinese publisher who paid him $2,000 for the copyright fee, and then but decided not to get a book, not to publish the book in China. So he wanted me to follow up and find out why. And then if they decided not to publish it anymore, then find a different publisher, in which I did. And that's when he invited me for the second time to talk to me in person.
Wow. And how was this book, I guess, resonated with China and Taiwan, the people there?
Yeah, the book is a really interesting book and has a lot of very sensitive issues and discussions. about the government and politicians. In China, the book was published as a science fiction uh, to get around the censorship. And in Taiwan, it's published as a nonfiction because people there are more open to this subject matter. And the government in Taiwan is a democratic government. So in China, a lot of people believe that is a real story of the author, and some of them just really wanted to know more. So the second version of the book was published in China, uh, having like containing more content, such as the foreword and also the postscript of the author. Um, and and I think it's well received in China and Taiwan because it's actually one of the best sellers in both countries.
Wow. So that's pretty cool that China is kind of open to this. Is there a lot of maybe like Roswell situations that happen in China that you can speak of?
Um, there are, but the government really doesn't talk about it. So there's very little information disclosed by the people who witnesses it and also by the government. There are a lot of sightings of UFOs and UAPs in China, and people use their cell phones to record the videos. Um, the government really doesn't talk about it anymore. They used to openly talk about it, and actually, there were a few interesting cases in which Chinese people encountered ETs. You remember the government was really open in the 1980s and early 1990s, and the official Chinese media reported on the close encounters with the ETs. And there are two very famous cases. In one case, the ETs warned about our environment, showing the Chinese uh, farmer um, about in a holographic film about where the natural resources such as petroleum, like oil, and also natural gas were, the reserves, and saying that if you don't invent or alternative source of energy, they're going to be depleted and your environment is going to be in trouble. And then in the second case, the ETs showed a school principal in China, also a semi-government official, how to heal a young girl by putting his hand on the lower neck area, which is a very important acupressure point in Chinese acupuncture. And then he learned it, and also they were able to track down the girl that he healed. Um, they were able to locate the girl. In both cases, the people went through polygraph exam, and then they also went through the different psychological exams just to make sure that they didn't have any illusions or hallucinations. So those are the two well-known cases in China that I think are significant.
Wow. But they don't like to talk about too much of that stuff in
Not
China.
that
No. How about in Hong Kong? Would that be different or Taiwan? Is that different there?
Yeah, they'll be different because in Hong Kong there's a UFO society,
Oh,
the Hong Kong UFO Society, in which actually I'm going to visit them in about a week or so.
oh.
And Taiwanese people too, they're very open to this as well.
Wow. So do they have incidents over there that's similar to Roswell where they maybe found a craft or one craft came crashing down or anything?
Probably not in Hong Kong, but in Taiwan, I'm not really sure. There are a lot of people who study this, and people in Taiwan believe in ghosts and reincarnation because a lot of people believe in Buddhism. But in terms of the UFOs, I don't know if there's any Roswell incident there.
Okay. I know the book had mentioned something like a warning saying material technology without spiritual knowledge leads to catastrophe. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, as you see nowadays with the advent of AI and also technology, people are gradually more leaning towards materialistic accumulations or materialism. And the ETs warned Michel Desmarquet back in 1987. That's when the incident occurred. that technology is going to lead human into a catastrophe if we don't focus more on our spiritual development. And actually, man exists for the sole purpose of developing spirituality. So this is the warnings from the ETs, and I think we need to take great precaution.
Yeah. The author also describes anti-gravity devices and generating water through air and harnessing ambient energy. Those seems very interesting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the ETs tell us that water molecules can be split very easily if you can just use the right vibrational frequency to uh, like make the forces between the molecules to neutralize the forces of the molecules. Or the atoms. And if you look at Stanley Meyer, who was very popular in the 1970s, who invented a vehicle that ran on water that was really well publicized by the media at that time, you realize that there are technologies that can really contribute to the environment. However, if you learned about Stanley Meyer, why he didn't continue, you're going to learn that he actually met investors, but unfortunately, he died mysteriously because of a sudden illness. Some people speculate that he was poisoned because the oil companies really didn't want to see such a technology that would hurt their financial interests. And by by joining atoms of air, you can actually also make water molecules. So in desert areas, you can use the same technology to join hydrogen and oxygen atoms or molecules together to make water molecules. So I think that's doable. It just depends on how the special interest groups allow us, or how the human beings resist or respond to such challenges.
The author also claims that spiritual phenomena such as auras and telepathies and reincarnations are real and tied to advanced civilization. Is that something that maybe, I don't know, sometimes people can do, can see auras? Is that all only tied to advanced civilization things or something else?
Not really, because nowadays some people can also see auras or the colors of the human energy fields. One of the most well-known one is actually Judith Collins in Sydney, Australia. She can not only see the colors of auras, but also chakras. You know, what I found out in the last few years is that people who can see auras, they they're not necessarily able to see the chakras, but people who can see chakras can see auras. And so she can see chakras and auras. So did Barbara Brennan, who wrote a book called Hands of Light. And she passed away already just 2 years ago or so. And she wrote the book and indicates that she was able to see the 7 different energy bodies of a person. And if she looks very carefully, she can see 9 different fields. And one day she saw a friend of hers having grayish color in the liver area. And a few months later, her friend was diagnosed of liver cancer. So in essence, the colors of auras will predict or forecast or foretell what kind of physical illness that a person is going to have in the future. In other words, the colors of auras will manifest themselves before the physical illness manifests in the physical body. So in essence, if you are able to remedy or make the aura colors healthy, then you're able to prevent physical illness from happening. And I think this is something I can share you a little bit more because my parents are Chinese doctors. This is how Chinese medicine works. Like if you boil the herbs into water to make the herbal tea, you're actually using water as the carrier for the different vibrational frequencies of the herbs that have healing effects. So when you drink the herbal tea or the liquid into your stomach, and the liquid actually will carry the healing vibrational frequencies in your body. And that's why it works, because it actually works on your energy fields or the auras.
That's incredible. Are
Yes.
there specific herbs that works better?
It really depends on what kind of physical illness you have and how your auric fields can be restored to the healthy state. And actually, this is how acupuncture works. Because in ancient times, a lot of the Chinese doctors could actually see the energy blockages because they could see the auric fields. So they just put the needles into the where the energy blockages were. But as over time they lost the ability to see the auras or the energy fields, they developed this kind of meridian or acupressure system that's based on the symptoms. So if you have certain symptoms, you put your needles into certain acupressure points because they cannot see the energy fields anymore. So acupuncture and herbal medicines of China and India work the same way. They work on the energy fields.
How does China, I guess, are they open to that still? Or are they kind of closed doors to those situations now with the herbs and acupuncture?
You know, it's kind of unfortunate because a lot of modern traditional Chinese medical doctors no longer realize that their energy fields or auras in the human body. So they just use the formula based on symptoms of their patients to prescribe herbal medicines to them. When in fact, when they realize that there are energy fields and there's a yin and yang in the energy fields, and you can actually use the herbs to really target the areas more effectively. And there's still traditional Chinese medicine in China. However, people tend to believe more in the Western medicine, in which, according to Judith Collins, they only work on the symptoms. They don't really work on the root causes.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. Wow. And you said your parents were doctors. Were they westernized doctors or were they traditional doctors?
They're traditional Chinese doctors. So this is why I was able to read the ancient classical traditional Chinese medical texts and also books.
Wow, that's awesome. Are you in any kind of I guess does China approve of you talking about this or do they not like this and what you say?
If I don't mention China, then I'm
Okay.
okay. If I
I
talk
see.
about China, or even if I talk about Taiwan as a country, then that's a no-no.
I see. I see. Okay. I didn't know if what you were saying would make you a target. Like, like, yeah.
It's a good thing that China blocks all the social media in the Western
Yeah,
world.
I guess
So,
so.
so our platform or video will not be able to be
Yeah.
Chinese people unless if I put it in the
That,
Chinese, yeah, language, I
that's
guess.
good. But do they look at our stuff though? I know that the people can't, but what about the higher ups? They are
They're
able probably to look.
they're too busy trying to take care of their own affairs, so
Okay.
they don't.
That's good. Well, that's a good thing. I was just curious. um, what else was I gonna ask you? I was
I mean,
gonna
I
ask.
can elaborate. I can elaborate. Like the Chinese government is like a machine. So
Mhm.
the machine is running, but also the people working for the government are private citizens or individuals who just want to get a salary. So unless they're instructed by their superiors, they don't necessarily want to initiate the action of looking for anything to have any problems.
True. And you say you might be going or you're going to Hong Kong in a week or so. Will that are you on that social system where you got to have a social something to be able to go on the trains and the bus and all that stuff that we hear about today?
You're talking about the social credit system.
Yes, yes.
Hong Kong is different from mainland China. So Hong
Okay.
Kong is still uses a lot of British legal system, and there's no need for a visa for Americans to travel to Hong Kong. I'm not going to China this time. I'm not going to the mainland China this time. But if I do go to mainland China, I can use my American passport to travel around. And I'm not going to be within their social credit system because I'm a foreigner, not a
Oh,
Chinese citizen.
oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. Um, the book also addresses UFOs and extraterrestrials and interplanetary contact, topics that you've spoken about publicly. How does this UFO culture differ between China and the West?
Um, in the sense that the government of China doesn't really encourage anything or any topics related to the UFOs. So it's the Chinese public that has the strong interest in learning from the ETs, the advanced ETs, learning about their technologies and knowledge. So this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, extremely popular in China, having sold like several millions of copies, not mention the pirated copies and people who download it for free from the internet. And so people are aware of the ETs who have been working with us or guiding us throughout history. So the Chinese public has been learning from the ETs. If you read this book, you're going to know that ETs whose spacecraft did not and will never crash on Earth because their technologies are so far more advanced than the ones who crashed on Earth, in which the American public or people have been focusing on, learning from the witnesses who testified in the Congress, um, from the crashed UFO UAP retrievals. And they have been reverse engineering um, from the vehicles that crashed on Earth. So if you compare the two, you're going to realize that the Chinese have been learning from the college professors from Harvard, and the Americans have been learning from the ones who crashed, like elementary school students. So this is sharp contrast. So I think the Chinese are actually having an edge or advantage compared to the Americans. So I'm actually helping the American public to learn from the ones that the technology is so far more advanced that their spacecraft will never crash. So learn and read the book Thiaoouba Prophecy. You're going to realize that they're far more advanced than the Greys. so, so I think people need to turn attention and shift the focus a little bit.
So there are many different beings out there or civilization.
Exactly. There are at least a few hundreds of different species of ETs just in our Milky Way galaxy. And they're the ones who are very, very advanced, and that the Chinese are learning, and they're the ones who are not so advanced, like the Americans have been focusing on. And also, there's a, I know, and there's a sharp contrast. And the American scientists have been learning from the technologies of the ones that crashed, and they compartmentalize of what they learned. But the Chinese, on the other hand, is the Chinese public who is sharing information among themselves. So the approaches, the two different approach, are very interesting too.
That is interesting. Wow. Have you ever seen, I guess, in China, people reporting of triangle shaped objects or UFO shaped objects, cigar shaped objects, things like that?
Yes, in China, most of the UFOs are kind of cigar shaped, or like saucers, sometimes spherical. In rare occasions, sometimes see triangular shaped objects. But I would just be cautious to the people who are watching is that when you look at triangular shaped objects, you're going to realize those are not really optimal for space travel. So I would incline to believe that those are man-made vehicles, artificial man-made vehicles by some of the defense companies in the US.
That's what I figured. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really incredible. That's really interesting. Um, do you still, and when I went on your website, I saw something about Better World Scholarship. Do you still have that? Do you still do that?
I'm actually thinking about stopping it or terminating that because more and more people are using AI to
Mhm.
summarize a book and to write the scholarship essays. And it's to my disappointment, it's really sad that even though I mentioned that this book is very unique, you have to read it in order
Mhm.
to write a very good essay. A lot of people just don't read it anymore. Over the last few years, only one or two people read the book. I can immediately tell if someone reads the book or not because the book is very unique, very, very unique. And actually, I'm thinking about stopping it.
Yeah, that's a shame. I know I think we've rely too much now on AI as humans. And in just a short period of time, we have relied on it too much, I believe, already.
Yes. So
Mm.
this is why I haven't been giving any scholarship in the past 2 years or so because I'm so disappointed.
Oh, yeah,
Mm.
that's too bad. I was going to ask you to talk about that. Okay. Well, this has been very interesting. Um, oh, I know one more question. Have you seen any UFOs or UAPs in the sky or
No,
something
not at all.
strange? Never, nothing.
Never, not a single one. I went with Stephen Greer on their C5 trip in the desert, and I didn't see anything. I mean,
Oh,
it's just like I
mm,
in my subconscious mind, I really wanted to do everything on my own without the assistance of the ETs, unless when it is absolutely necessary.
yeah. Well, I have to tell you here where I live in Hawaii, probably I think this was February of 2022. February 22, I think it was, or February 21, 2022. I saw something very unusual over the waters here in Hawaii, and I cannot explain it to you. It was a red and bluish light that was swirling really fast. And the swirl, when it was swirling, it became purpley. So it was purple, red, and blue. And it was over the water. If and it was a distance away, of course, it wasn't very close. But if I was to hold my hand out and have a basketball in my hand, it was probably about that size. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning, and it was glistening the whole sky with this orange and red, blue, purplish light. I really thought it was a helicopter coming down, crashing. I really thought that. I thought it was spiraling down, and there was no sound, no noise at all. And in just of a blink of an eye, it was gone that fast. It probably lasted maybe 30 seconds from when I saw it to when it disappeared. And probably about, I don't know, 20 minutes or so later, I could smell ion in the air. You know, that funny metallic smell.
Mm.
Any thoughts on that?
I think it's man-made because anything that
Mm,
you see or smell that's
mhm,
not natural or some
mhm.
kind of having negative effect on your sense or your physical body is probably man-made or artificial because the ETs when they come to us they have to follow a rule, a universal law, which is cause no harm, do no harm to the people that you visit. This is like a galactic law or universal law that they follow when they travel to other planets. So when you have radiation, when you smell metallic, and when you have some kind of negative feeling, um, more or less, I think it's probably a project of a defense company here in the U.S. or elsewhere. The ETs wouldn't do that to us.
That is really strange. Like, I don't know if that was a portal opening up or something. It was just so odd. It wasn't like I saw a spaceship. It was just a light. It was just crazy light that was so bright in the low. It was not really high in the sky. It was very low. It was above the water.
And also, I know for a fact that the technologies that the real ETs use will not result in metal smell.
Yeah, I don't know if that was connected. I just remember that about 20 I don't remember. I wrote it down. So I'd have to look at my notes that later on I could smell that. I have no idea if it was connected. I have no clue. But it was just odd that and it stood out to me. Yeah. Very strange. Well, is there anything else maybe that you could mention about the book that maybe we forgot to talk about?
I think one of the most important lessons in the book or messages is that when you have challenges in life, you should look inside for answers. For the kingdom of God is within you. Because when the Creator created every one of us, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each of our astral bodies. So we are part of the Creator, and the Creator is part of us. So this is why in the Old Testament of the Bible, it keeps saying, follow the Ten Commandments and do not worship idols, because you can look inside for answers. And I think all the challenges that we face in our lifetime are actually very good lessons or questions or problems for us to solve in order to learn the spiritual lessons. Because according to the author and the ETs, that for each reincarnation that we have, and the different reincarnations we have are just like different positions on a wheel. What goes up has to come down. So it's through the challenges that we face in our lifetime that we learn the spiritual lessons. So in my mind, I think the harder the questions or the challenges, the problems that we have, the more precious the opportunities for us to learn. So if you are solving a mathematical problem, if you're able to solve a calculus problem, then you're going to be like a master, versus if you just solve 1 + 1 = 2. So I think we should take a look at the challenges in life more positively and treasure those and respond those by looking inside for answers.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it for your time and sharing these incredible insights with us today. But before we go, can you let our listeners know where they can find you, your work? And yeah, I was going to ask about the scholarship, but we're not going to do that.
Right. So the people can find the book on Amazon by searching Thiaoouba Prophecy. It is also on Audible, read by a very good British narrator. And people can find me on Facebook and also on X.
I want to thank my special guest, Samuel Chong, for sharing his insights into the Thiaoouba Prophecy. If this conversation got you thinking, make sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify. It really helps more people discover this show and to grow our little ohana here. You can also support the show through Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, and you'll find the links in the show notes below. Now, until the next time, guys, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep looking up. You never know what you're going to see. Ahui ho kako, guys. Bye.
to dive into something. You got nothing to lose, but I'm not that way. Taking my sweet time, don't wanna be the one to cry. But I'm losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into? I need to get, where do we land? Tell me, is it too soon? Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I'm going crazy over you. My hands, they shake when you walk into the room, and I can't think straight. There's no one like you, but I wanna chase this feeling with you. Don't walk away from this tonight. I'm going with you. Losing my cool, breaking my rules. I don't usually get so out of my head, walking the edge. What am I falling into?